on.
Not a problem. Always a pleasure. Sam Clovis worked for Donald Trump when President Trump was in the White House. We're going to talk with about Donald Trump in just a minute. We are broadcasting live again today from the Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters studio. Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 576-6481. President Trump is suing the big tech companies, alleging that the big tech companies have abandoned all pretense of objectivity, which of course they have, and are under the sway of the radical left. And I don't think there are liberals anymore, Sam, and I think you'd probably agree with me that that there's only a radical left who really believes that Western capitalism is responsible and white people are responsible for all the ills of the world. Apparently, white people in Western capitalism never did a thing right, according to, well, Joe Biden, who has enjoyed the benefits of Western-style capitalism since the day he was born, but never mind. So I'm glad to see President Trump is doing this. What do you think?
Well, I think it's probably the right thing to do, and I think it's probably one of those things that we get to the court, there's going to be a lot of issues. It may get thrown out because you have to reclassify the big tech companies as publishing houses if they are going to censor, which is essentially what they're doing. If they're going to censor, then they are no longer open public forums. They then take on the classification of a publishing house, and then as a publishing house, they can censor, they can do those things, but they also then come under different scrutiny when it comes to the law. And then they can be liable, and then they can, you can go after them for libel, and for a lot of other issues that appear in that thing. I think there's a lot. I don't want to get into the legal aspects of all of this, but I do think that I have said all along that if you are on one of the social media accounts, your best way of proving or avoiding censorship is to get off of that social media account, and or don't post things that could be considered to be controversial or otherwise, because if that's an open forum and they decide that they want to have filters, I know, and that's why I'm not on Facebook, I'm not on Twitter, is because I couldn't get anything published because of my background, and because they had, when you're conservative, they know and they screen you, and you're going to be censored. And I was, and I just decided that, my best way to do it is just to get off of it. And I think if a lot of people argue the case that say, well, they shouldn't censor me when I'm out there, I'm saying, I'm sorry, you're on there by your choice, and you're on there, that platform, that is their platform. It's not your platform. It's not a public platform. It's their platform. And if you're on there, then you are subject to their rules. And the fact that you're a conservative and you put screeds on there that are conservative screeds, and suddenly you can't talk to anybody, the best way, if you want to avoid being censored, get off the platform.
I understand that, Sam, but President Trump is arguing that these platforms have become important public forums for discussing different positions held by a wide variety of groups. He's right. And if you restrict somebody like you've been restricted, and Donald Trump and several conservatives, I'm unaware of any liberals, I can't even say liberals, leftist radicals, I'm unaware of any leftist radicals being kicked off of Twitter or Facebook or any of these other social platforms for being flat out crazy, which they are. And
well, but I think
okay.
So then let's argue another point here. Let's argue the point then that those platforms are public.
Yes.
They are public. They perform a public service. So it is like when you go to Hyde Park and you go to Speaker's Corner and you stand on that box. You talk for 10 minutes. You can talk about anything or anything you want. And so what you're saying is that when Facebook opens Facebook, I mean, you open it is a public forum.
Yes.
Okay, so they make money off of that. So that is a monetized enterprise that Facebook is making money off the number of clicks that you get on a particular thing, or you go through that process there. So now we're going to say, okay, so let's say that we classify them as a public utility or as a public platform, then that changes everything. And then, so that is, if that's what Trump is arguing, I think that's an uphill climb, but I think it's worthy of the argument.
Well, we have to be aware of certain realities here. Donald Trump went around the media directly to the American people on Twitter, and he beat the hell out of Hillary Clinton, who everybody assumed was just going to have a sweet ride into the White House and govern us with her smug maternalism for another 8 years. It didn't happen, and it didn't happen because Trump could go to the people and not get the media filter, including guys like me. I mean, he rarely, I don't know if he ever appeared on Rush Limbaugh when Rush was still with us, and many, many other conservative talk show sites. He depended on Twitter, and he bombed away all the time on Twitter. Not so much on Facebook, but he became president because of Twitter. And now Twitter is trying to ensure that he not become president or not become a major public figure in the conservative cause because they don't like him. And that's where the First Amendment has to come in. The First Amendment is all about tolerating speech you don't like. And believe me, there's a lot of speech out there I don't like.
I'm sorry. I'm going to argue against this. I'm going to argue at the fact that Twitter as a platform is a private platform. It's not a public platform. If you want to classify it a public platform, then that makes it that's a different argument. But right now, it's a private platform, and if you're on Twitter, you're on there of your volition, your choice, not Twitter's choice, your choice. And it is not, it is a private enterprise. It is not a public enterprise. If you want to, how do you make it public? Do you go and you say, okay, now that we have these social media platforms, all of the social media platforms, which includes, okay, let's put TikTok and Instagram and all of these other social platforms under there, that they are in fact public. And then that has to change. So what you're doing is you have to change the regulation and bring those enterprises that are private into the public domain and make them public enterprises, which is like a public utility. That's what you're arguing, because right now they are not public enterprises.
First of all,
they're private.
First of all, I don't mind arguing with fellow conservatives or have, and I can't even say arguing. I don't mind having passionate, reasoned discussions with conservatives. It's something the leftist radicals do not. They're all out there chanting over and over again, diversity, equality, inclusion. Oh, it sounds good, doesn't it? Diversity, equality, inclusion. What they're really saying is that we must have equal outcomes, not equal opportunity, equal outcomes.
Exactly.
And that all wealth in the United States is really publicly owned. Because getting back to Barack Obama, hey, you didn't earn this. You didn't do this. You didn't earn this. Hey, the wealth of the country should be is owned publicly, and we're the public arbiters of who should get what. That's exactly what they're arguing about. And further, as far as climate change is concerned, what they're really arguing is that Western capitalism is to blame for all the ills in the world when it comes to climate change. As a matter of fact, they are cracking down hard on Biden. The climate change people are cracking down hard on Biden right now for focusing on the misdeeds of China with their military moves, trying to build islands all the way to Hawaii and all those things. They don't want to hear about that. They want smooth relations with China so we can do something about climate change, which they see as a direct and fatal threat to the entire world in just a few years or 30 years. That's what they think.
Well, why aren't they doing anything about the three biggest polluters in the world?
That's exactly
and the three
right.
biggest polluters in the world are China, Russia, and India. Those are the three largest polluters in the world, and they're not members of the Paris Accords. They're not going to change anything they do because it is not in their personal and their state interest to do so. So why are the climate change people climbing all over Western civilization, which is really what they're talking about? It's Western civilization. And so they're climbing all over that. It's because Western civilization has generated the wealth of the world for the past 400 years.
What?
And so people get upset over the United States consumes 25% of the energy on the earth. Well, that when you generate 20% of the economy of the world, you're going to consume a great deal of the resources of the world to do that, to create that. And so I don't see anybody. The thing is, this is the hypocrisy of the progressives, the radical left, because they want to scream about Western civilization, but they're not going to do anything about the three biggest polluters in the world. And by the way, that's half the people of the world. That's half the people on Earth live in those three countries. And so, I don't understand why the people in this country are not more outraged at the fact that we're not cracking down on China, because we ought to crack down like Trump did. We ought to be in there duking it out with them every day.
I understand what you're saying, and I'm going to bring you back to the social media platforms.
Right.
If there isn't a platform to talk like you and I do on social media, we're screwed. I think the world is screwed. The country is screwed, especially because, Sam, I only have a 1,000-watt signal. I might get to Ames. I don't think that's KVFD, unfortunately, is not a factor in international politics. Social media outlets are.
Yeah.
That's why free speech.
Then what you're arguing is we have to move. If those platforms, they have to do one of two things. If they're private, then they have to be private, and they can be and they can be so adjudicated as private platforms. If they're public, then let's make them public, and then we regulate them like public platforms. That's where we have to go. Because right now we're neither fish nor fowl, and we have to figure out which one we are.
I understand you're making an argument that would restrict government intervention as far as social platforms go. But these social platforms have become worldwide, billions of followers. And if people overseas, for example, are only hearing about how terrible the United States is, and that's all that's on Twitter anymore, if that's all they're hearing, they're going to believe it. Hey, look, Twitter is owned by an American company, and they say the United States sucks. Never mind that the founders of Twitter and Facebook are ridiculously wealthy and protected by the U.S. military, for which they condemn regularly in one of the biggest acts of hypocrisy in history. We have to have free speech, Sam. If we're going to have,
then I'm not arguing with you about that. I am arguing about the technical aspects of these social media platforms. If we consider them to be the speaker's corner in Hyde Park, then let's treat them that way. If they are not the speaker's corner in Hyde Park, then we don't have anything to say.
Big difference between the speaker's corner on Hyde Park, KVFD radio, and Twitter. I don't have that many users that Twitter does. You know, I hate to admit it.
What I'm saying
I think I
is
should
that-
have more, but I don't.
But I just, I would agree with the whole notion of suing them, because what they are, in fact, if they act like a public platform, then they are a public platform. And that's what Trump is saying. If they are a public platform, then they must be treated like a public platform. I think that's what he's trying to get to, because if they're public, then then they cannot put restrictions on the speech that go on there.
I'm arguing that they are a political tool of the left, is what I'm arguing, and
well,
that must be.
So the subtlety here of my argument is to take that away from them.
By doing
That's
what?
the subtlety of my argument, by making them public.
Don't be subtle, Sam.
No, but you and I are saying the same thing. I think that they are tools of the left. I think they are in the pocket, deep in the pockets. In fact, I think they are the initiators of the left. They are the springboard. They are the intrusion. They are the lead forces. They're the skirmishers. They're the ones that are out on the forefront. And what I'm saying is this: if you let's take that away from them. Let's make them public. And then they can't do that. Then they can't be the instrument. Then it'll be up to the people who are on the platform to determine the direction. And they will find, the left will find the left, the right will find the right, the people in the middle will find the middle, and people looking for their long lost loves will find their long lost loves on Facebook. And then that's how we'll have those great reunions that we've yearned for over all these years. And so I'm being a little bit facetious, but what I'm saying is that will be taken away from them. And that's what I'm arguing. Let's take that away from them, but let's do it by making them, forcing them to be public platforms. And I think that's what we really ought to be doing.
Can we do that? Can the courts do that? Or does it take an act of Congress?
I think the legislation is clear. Let's make them antitrust. Let's go after them and say, Microsoft. Does Microsoft control 90% of the market share?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. Let's go for it. And let's find, if you're going to enforce, let's enforce it across the board. Let's go out here and do that. Does anybody compete with Facebook? No. Facebook's got 100% of the market share when it comes to that kind of platform. Break them up. Go in there and say, okay, you have a monopoly. We don't allow monopolies in this country. Okay, so now, if you're a monopoly, then you are like a public utility. We will treat you like a public entity.
Well,
that's where you go.
Well, a little over 100 years ago, a Democratic president named Teddy Roosevelt took some amazing steps towards breaking up monopolies, and he got the job done. And now Teddy Roosevelt is not some nutcase leftist radical Democrat like we have now. He was somebody who really was interested in what was best for the country, and God bless him.
Right.
We don't have that anymore, and sometimes we don't have it because of social media platforms. And really, the fear of talk radio is greatly exaggerated. I mean, what really counts in the political narrative, pounding away at a political narrative, is the social media platforms. Sam Clovis is our guest. Sam, can you call us back in just